Pat Hoberg, one of the few competent umpires in Major League Baseball, has been fired.
This is bullshit.
This is an umpire who called a postseason game 100% correct. 100%. How is that possible? He was actually a solid umpire. I think he cared. I think he did his best every game. He did not intentionally call ball strikes and vice versa, and I think other umpires do that. I've talked about it. It's not that I think all the umpires in Major League Baseball are just inherently trash, terrible. No, they got to Major League Baseball by being good umpires, right? But because they can't be fired, they can't be demoted, at least not for underperformance, not for sucking. Oh, they'll get a bad report card, they'll get a bad evaluation, but they don't get fired. Well, we know what can get you fired now. Pat Hoberg apparently shared a legal sports betting account with a friend of his. This was in the state of Iowa, in which gambling on sports became legal back in 2019. And Pat Hoberg asked a buddy of his to place non-baseball bets for him on that account, on his buddy's account. Now, his friend eventually gave Hoberg the password and username so he could jump in himself and place his own bets. I mean, it's a little unusual, but understandable that this could happen. Maybe Hoberg didn't want an account in his own name, but he did want to gamble on other sports. And he's thinking, well, I'm not betting on baseball. I don't even have my own account. I should be safe.
That's not true.
Hoberg denies betting on baseball in any way, shape, or form. We'll look at his statement in a minute. His personal devices don't show any baseball bets placed. MLB found no evidence that he manipulated any calls in any games. There's no evidence he bet on a game and tried to make calls that ensured the outcome would end up in his favor. But MLB does say he intentionally deleted messages relating to the league's investigation. This right here is a summary of their release, of the release from MLB. The disciplinary action was taken due to Hoberg's failure to uphold the integrity of the game by sharing sports betting accounts with a professional poker player and friend who bet on baseball and whom Hoberg should have known bet on baseball, and due to Hoberg's intentional deletion of messages central to MLB's investigation into his conduct. Throughout the investigation and appeals process, Hoberg adamantly denied betting on baseball directly or indirectly through his friend, and the data provided by the sportsbook does not show any baseball bets from his own electronic devices. Like I said, MLB found no evidence that Hoberg or anyone else took any action to manipulate the outcomes of any games. It feels kind of like he didn't bet on baseball. I don't think he did, to be honest, but he still showed some poor judgment, especially in 2024 when he opened up an account in his own name. It opened himself up to an investigation, and Major League Baseball has now discovered what they've discovered with that other account. Here's that perfect game, 100% overall accuracy, 129 of 129 pitches called correctly. You just don't see that in Major League Baseball. Umpires take it upon themselves to call ball strikes, be a little tougher on rookies, to do whatever. Hall of Fame pitcher, you're going to give them a couple extra inches, right? I think it's all BS. I think they need to act like they're machines back there and just call the game. You chose your career. You want to be an umpire? Go back there and do it correctly. The best you can. Yes, we're humans. We'll make mistakes. No one expects every umpire to be perfect, but we also don't expect a pitch a foot off the plate to be called a strike. And we don't expect calls that everyone in the stadium knows was wrong, except you. No, you knew it too, but you just did whatever you wanted. Not to get into that again and to get back into that rant. But let's take a look at the statement issued by Pat Hoberg. As detailed in the statement that MLB issued today, Commissioner Manfred has upheld my termination based on my failure to conform to high standards of personal conduct and to maintain the integrity of the game of baseball. I take full responsibility for the errors in judgment that are outlined in today's statement. Those errors will always be a source of shame and embarrassment to me. MLB umpires are held to a high standard of personal conduct, and my own conduct fell short of that standard. That said, to be clear, I have never and would never bet on baseball in any way, shape, or form. I've never provided and would never provide information to anyone for the purpose of betting on baseball. Upholding the integrity of the game has always been of utmost importance to me. I apologize to MLB and the entire baseball community for my mistakes. I vow to learn from them and be a better version of myself going forward. That's the statement from Pat Hoberg. And I think another big problem with this is that there were 141 bets placed on baseball in that account that he shared with his friend. And of the 141 bets, 8 of them involved games that Hoberg was involved in. Now, that's not a huge number, and it might be coincidental. It sounds about coincidental, like his friend was just placing bets on baseball. And of course, a few of them happened to be games that Hoberg was umpiring, and he probably wasn't even the home plate umpire for most of them. And it's not like it's 50% of the games or 25% of the games were games in which Hoberg was umpiring, which would be insanely suspect. 8 of 141, but the fact that any bets were made on that account in which Hoberg was umpiring a game is a huge problem. But, you know, MLB probably wouldn't have even known about that account if he didn't open that account in his own name. So definitely not smart moves by Pat Hoberg. But let me also say this, MLB actively promotes gambling, just pushing this really hard. And you can say, no, that's for the fans, not for the players, not for the umpires. I mean, those ads are made for human beings to look at and get enticed by and then follow up on it and spend their money gambling. That's what the ads are for. Players and umpires are human beings too. They see them. In my opinion, for something like gambling that's been so destructive to the game of baseball, we know about the 1919 World Series and it's banned throughout. Like, you can't gamble. You get banned from the game if you gamble. It's to that extent. I don't think they should mess with it. Why are you promoting something that you know can really destroy the game from within? And by the way, it's not that great for fans either to be gambling. At least in some instances, it can be addictive. It can be very damaging. It can destroy lives. Now, again, the same can be said for other things as well. And I'm not saying it should be banned or illegal. I'm not saying that, but it just seems that sports, especially, you know, Major League Baseball, they don't need that extra revenue. They can be okay without promoting gambling. And it does seem a little bit, I'm gonna say a little bit hypocritical, not completely, because again, I know those ads are for the fans and not for players and umpires to look at, but they do look at them, they do see them. And I'm not saying Hoberg started because of ads in the stadium necessarily, but something got him into it, and he was into it so much he opened his own account. I don't know if he was addicted, I don't know if he had a gambling problem per se, but he very well may have. But MLB is going to continue to make money however they can. We already got the ads on the uniforms. There's going to be a second ad to a uniform in our lifetimes, I believe. And who knows what's going to go on from there. It's just bad. And I don't think there's any reason to promote gambling. Players have gotten in trouble in the past who were retired. My man Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays, remember, they got in trouble for just sponsoring casinos after their retirement. They weren't even playing anymore. And they got in trouble, but eventually were, I think, exonerated and welcomed back and everything. But, I mean, MLB going after players, going after umpires, yet they promote it all the time as well. So in this case, I don't think he had to be fired. I think that if his story checks out and they do an investigation and they believe him, they say, look, we believe you didn't bet on baseball, but that account that had baseball, you no longer can access that. And we're going to be keeping a close eye on you from now on, you know, something of that nature, in my opinion. If there's no evidence that he actually personally bet on baseball and then went and tried to change the way he umpires accordingly, there's no evidence of that. Yeah, he made some stupid moves and maybe deserves a suspension, but fired? I don't know. I don't think so. I think his performance on the field tells us that it ain't like Pete Rose or something where there's lots of instances where you can see it. He's betting on games he's managing in personally and probably making some decisions to help his bets out. There's no evidence of that for Pat Hoberg. And it's just disappointing and sad that one of the good umpires is gone. And guess what? If an umpire stinks directly at their job, they can't get fired. They don't get fired for that. They get fired for a dumb mistake like this in which he really didn't bet on baseball. Now, if he had bet on baseball in a game he umpired in, I would agree. You got to fire him, but that doesn't seem to be the case. But let me know what you guys think in that comment section down below. Love to hear your thoughts. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe, and we'll talk to you in the next one.